This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Comcast is committed to bringing access to the internet to all Americans, including rural communities across the country, like Sussex County, Delaware.
We were being left behind. Everybody around us seemed to have internet, but we did not. High-speed internet is one of those good things that we needed to help us move our farming, our small businesses, our recreation forward.
Learn more about how we're bringing our next-generation network to more people across the country at ComcastCorporation.com/investment in America.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello, welcome. Happy Thursday. This is The Last Show, a program that's sort of like sitting up at a dive bar and catching weird, friendly, intimate conversations all night. Oh, there's also science and relationships and the odd attempt at a joke here and there. Quick update from my tiny black cat Tomato. He's doing fine. Oh, he's so friendly and nice. This concludes cat-related content for now. Let me shut up and tell you about tonight's show. AI and large language models are not just changing how we work, they are reshaping how many of us think. This useful shortcut we use now means our brain shortcuts from difficult tasks like essay writing and design. Now, there's some benefit to using it, but is that price originality, creativity? Is AI about to bring forth a so-called cognitive revolution that'll change us, much like the Industrial Revolution? Deep questions we'll tackle in about 10 minutes' time. Then, oh shoot, it's cat-related, isn't it now? Adorable animal content shared on the internet makes it a more positive place, according to a new study. It bonds us. Sharing cat videos can be a love language. So we'll discuss how that all works and why sharing fun videos and memes with your friends may be an antidote to some of the awful news you hear these days. Oh, and capybaras. We'll discuss capybaras. That'll be partway through the hour. There's more great stuff than that, which we'll tell you about throughout the evening. So let's dive in, shall we?
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in yet another reason you should tip your food courier app driver news. Now, there's a small difference between deserving a tip and demanding one at gunpoint. But yet, no one seemed to have told that to one particular DoorDash driver. A man in Vancouver, Washington, 59 years old, which in my opinion is way too old to be committing your first delivery-related armed robbery, is alleged to have returned to a customer's house the day after a food drop-off. And no, it wasn't because the person who ordered the food demanded ketchup packets. He didn't forget one of 9 chicken nuggets, or do they serve them in 10s now? No, the driver reportedly didn't like the amount of the digital tip he received and demanded a crinkly hard cash bonus on top of it. So he circled back to the scene of the delivery, showed up the next morning, armed, cranky. I guess he was sort of like a baby boomer who just found out he's not allowed to yell at the cash register anymore. He told the homeowner, "You forgot to give me my tip." I don't know if that's what his voice sounded like, but I do know it's never a great thing to have yelled at you before 11 a.m. And certainly not from a man with a Glock in his pants and a grudge in his heart. The homeowner, the person who purchased the DoorDash order, said things quickly escalated into a scuffle, by which I assume he means the kind of scuffle where your life flashes before your eyes and includes several awkward memories from middle school. At one point in the fight, the customer reached behind the DoorDasher and felt the cold steel of a gun in the guy's waistband, which is also how most mob movies begin. Except this one ends with a notification that says your DoorDasher has been disarmed, because the customer somehow disarmed the Dasher. Now, at this point, both men call 911, which to me is always fun when two parties at the same incident Call the authorities, but on completely different vibes. Somehow, thankfully, no one got shot or seriously injured. Which is amazing, given that the situation started with a grocery order delivery and ended up like a rejected scene from Breaking Bad. Police showed up, arrested the driver, of course, maybe he shouldn't have called them, and let me say again, no one was injured, though I imagine the customer's blood pressure is still trying to DoorDash its way back down. Now, the company DoorDash says they have a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, which is corporate lawyer speak for, how on earth did this happen? Look, I personally do believe you should tip your delivery person, and tip them well, even when tipping is somehow mandatory and optional at the same time. It's confusing, I know, but the baseline of these people's income revolves around the tip. Having said that, if you're driving around armed over a grocery order, maybe customer service and being a delivery driver is not your calling. Try cage fighting or politics. So yes, tip your dasher generously. But if they come back the next day demanding cash with a firearm in their pants, 1-star rating, do not recommend. Though at least in this case, the guy had the common decency to call the cops on himself. Seriously, on what planet do you show up to someone's house yelling at them with a firearm and then you call the cops on them? How else was this going to end but this dasher's arrest? Case closed, allegedly. All the facts are alleged. I don't want to get sued by DoorDash. And in the world's tiniest violin playing a beautiful sonata just for you news comes a violin that sets the record for being the world's tiniest. Seriously. Except it's not for you. It's not for your heartbreak, your breakup, or that tragic moment when your barista spelt your name wrong. It's for science, which is frankly maybe worse. Physicists in the UK have created a violin so small, it's smaller than a human hair. A split end even, to be precise. You need a microscope and probably a PhD just to be insulted by it. It's 35 microns long and 13 microns wide, which, in other words, is small. You can't play it, you can't hear it, and if you tried to sell it, Etsy would probably say, that's a scam. You can't sell a speck of dust. And in case you're wondering, it's smaller than most dust. This tiny diva wasn't built to serenade sad clowns or Instagram influencers post-breakup. It was designed using a nano phaser. Yes, a nano phaser, which to me sounds like something a Bond villain uses to laser the moon, but is actually a heated needle that carves tiny shapes into materials, one molecule at a time. They used it to etch a violin-shaped hole into a chip covered with a gel-like goo. Delicious. They filled that hole with platinum. Sounds expensive. And then gave it an acetone bath. No comment on that. Sounds maybe dangerous. But this all sounds like basically a fancy version of arts and crafts, but for atoms, by nerds. A professor close to the project says it's all part of a greater mission to understand how materials respond to light, magnetism, electricity, all in the name of improving computers and figuring out new ways to harvest new energy. That's right, we're one step closer to a future where your phone still dies at 12%, but perhaps soon it will do so with atomic precision. But make no mistake, this isn't actually a real instrument. You can't play Flight of the Bumblebee on it. That is, unless you're a literal bumblebee. It's more just like a carved-out miniature. So technically not the world's smallest violin, since no one's officially confirmed it. I guess the best way to think of it is it's like a picture of one. But what other thing is lining up to win this contest? I mean, it looks like a violin. It just might not play like one. And yes, I keep saying it for those who don't know, the idiom, the phrase, world's smallest violin, is meant to mock people who are being overly dramatic. Which, let's be honest, makes this violin potentially the pettiest scientific achievement of the decade. Somewhere out there, a PhD physicist cried so hard he built an atomic scale whatever. All in all, the research took months to do, cost who knows how much, and resulted in a microscopic violin that no one asked for and nobody can hear. But hey, at least it's not another podcast. And before you roll your eyes, which I have been doing, and say to yourself, what's the point? Just remember, those little bits in your phone actually use technology like this. Your computer does too. And somewhere down the line, this violin might help your AI assistant say, "I'm sorry, you're sad," in a tone that feels both emotionally manipulative and vaguely British, Australian. I'm bad at accents. So yeah, it's the world's tiniest violin. This was perhaps the world's longest sarcastic description of it. And it wasn't built for you. It was built for science. But if it was, I'd be playing it right now. For all the people listening to this thinking, what a waste of our greatest scientific minds. Remember when the Industrial Revolution happened? It was at least 6 or 7 months ago. No, but seriously, all those years ago, society was transformed in unimaginable ways. We are on the verge of a cognitive revolution, one where a lot of our thinking and work is heavily aided by AI, large language models, ChatGPT. So on the other side of the break, imagine with us as we think of how society may shift in the next 40 years, as we forget skills that were once highly necessary and deeply creative, like, I don't know, writing.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Put us in a box. Go ahead. That just gives us something to break out of. Because the next generation 2025 GMC Terrain Elevation is raising the standard of what comes standard. As far as expectations go, why meet them when you can shatter them? What we choose to challenge, we challenge completely. We are professional grade. Visit gmc.com to learn more.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The last show with David Cooper.
AI isn't just changing how we work, it's changing how we think. From essay writing to design, it's becoming a useful shortcut for many people. But as we automate thought itself, are we gaining efficiency at the price of originality? I'm here with two delightful individuals. They are from the business school at the University of Sydney. Their names are Dr. Kai Riemer and Dr. Sandra Peter. Kai, Sandra, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be back.
It is a pleasure. Let's start right here. Like the Industrial Revolution, are we undergoing a cognitive revolution? And how is AI tied up into all this?
Well, that depends, right?
That depends.
Isn't it great to have academics?
Great answer. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Yeah, we need to unpack that.
I think everyone really wants to know, is this thing making us smarter or is it making us dumber? And I think much like the Industrial Revolution, there were things that got augmented by having things that would physically lift things for us. And there were things we got a little bit worse at once we got machines to do things for us.
I think it all depends on how you use it, right? If you're vibing it, right? If you are one of those people, and we all know those people in the workplace that, always sound smart but can't answer a question about what they're giving us because they're just outsourcing all their stuff to ChatGPT. Yeah, it's efficient, right? It's a shortcut, it's convenient. But are you actually learning anything? And are you still able to judge what the chatbot gives you, because surely it sounds convincing because these things are really, really good at mimicking language and, giving us what we want to hear. But is it always the best answer to a question is the question.
So what did we lose during the Industrial Revolution? I feel like people who worked with their hands, making things like metal and machine parts and all kinds of, intricate, like artisan stuff, people can't do it anymore. So in that narrow sense, we became dumber. Are the tasks that AI is good at, are those the tasks we're going to get dumber at? Like, are we going to become worse writers in the next 20, 30 years?
I think some of us might become worse writers, but you have to think of what the Industrial Revolution did. It basically gave lots of people access to things that maybe they would have never had access before because it was all the artisans who could, create nice furniture or, toys for kids or other things, right? And the Industrial Revolution allowed us to mass produce a lot of those things. And it gave people access to things they never had access before. But it also then put a premium on artisan things. Today, we still have, bags that are handmade and they cost an arm and a leg and you have to queue up for 2 years to get one, right? So I think something similar might happen in this revolution as well, where we will get to do a lot of things a lot faster. And let's be fair, there's a lot of writing where there's not a lot of skill necessarily involved where we can automate things, but we still need human creativity and insight in some of that writing, the artisan bit.
Yeah. So if you think about, everyone can have nice furniture, all right? You can go to IKEA, and I think the point is, yes, everyone can have nice furniture, but also our living rooms all tend to look the same, right? Because we all got the same furniture from, I don't know what, which one.
Don't insult my Malm. I happily slept on it for many years.
Oh, nothing wrong with that, right? And we all have IKEA.
We all have a billion.
We all have IKEA furniture at home, but I think that's part of the concern is that as you use something like ChatGPT, it gives you good enough stuff, right? And everyone's got access to good writing, but are we losing the quirkiness? Are things becoming more of the same? And are we losing the sort of the quality or the sort of the taste, right, of making our own decisions? I think that is some of the worries behind it.
If a lot of people's writing is becoming homogenized by ChatGPT, are we losing quirky things? Are we losing quirky creative things? That this idea that everyone writes differently, is that something that's going to be lost in the next 20, 30 years?
Not as long as you write your own show and ask your own questions and we get to...
How do you even know I'm performing my own show right now?
That is true. I can see you now, and I'm fairly convinced it's not a deep fake, but you're right.
I think it depends on how we're using it, right? So if you're using it in a lazy, convenience optimizing kind of way, you're asking it something, it gives you something, and that looks good to me, right? LGTM looks good to me. It's good enough. Then yes, we might actually lose a lot of the variance. But if you're using it to improve your own writing, if you let it ask you questions, if you let it critique your writing, if you iterate, if you're actually putting a bit of effort in, it can actually do the opposite. If you write
your own jokes.
Yeah, it can actually do the opposite. It can open your thinking and it can give you new ideas and new angles. And then it does the opposite.
And then there's one other thing. I think it's really easy to think about this as having a uniform impact. I think it's quite useful to think that it will impact people with different levels of skill differently. You're already good at writing jokes, right? And you're good at summarizing things. So you can...
And you're bad at knowing who's good at writing jokes. We all have our skills and things we're not skilled at. But please, go ahead.
Exactly.
I thought we were just, flattering each other. That's what I learned from ChatGPT.
So if you're good at writing, this tool can actually augment and help you hone that skill, right? And be something that improves and speeds you up and so on. But if you're not great at it, or if you haven't learned the skill to begin with, it becomes a much harder proposition, because somewhere you have to develop what I call taste, right? And critical thinking and the ability to discern what's really good, what's really funny. So for people who are starting out with some of these tools, that road might be a little bit harder than for those where, it's already quite easy to use it as an assistant.
If in the absence of taste, if you're just using these tools to produce creative work because maybe you're not an expert, or maybe it's just a class you need to graduate from and you're not so committed to it, whose taste is being reflected in the large language model?
That's a very interesting question, because there's two ways to think about this. One is it's the average taste, right?
That's literally how these things work, right? Probabilities. What's the most probable thing, which is usually the most common thing, right?
Yeah. Then you also want to think about how these models are fine-tuned. They come from a very particular Anglo-North American perspective, so they might not be reflective of tastes in other parts of the world. But there's also kind of a weird taste that is embedded in these models, because if you think of things like bias that gets encoded, sometimes because of how they're built, this bias is very different to how we normally think about bias. We did actually write a paper about this. And, it's called the problem of the lone banana.
Yes.
Yes, the problem of the lone banana. I can't believe they let us do this.
Sounds vulgar, but I like it.
Well, we got a generative AI to generate a picture of a banana, and it gave us 2 bananas. Then we got it to generate a picture of just a single one, just one.
Yeah, we started yelling in all caps, just 1 banana, but it would always give you a version of kind of 2 bananas. And we were like, what's going on here?
Well, average banananess for a large language model is 2 bananas.
It's a bunch, right?
It's a bunch, exactly. But that happens in text as well.
Is this like the average number of fingers on the human body is slightly less than 10? Is this like somehow encoded in generating images?
It's six per hand, which adds up to 10 or something like that.
It's like the wine glass that no matter how much you ask it to be full, it's always half full, because all the pictures of full wine glasses are kind of the way they make it full when you're at the bar, right? And we can moderate some of these things by fine-tuning the models, but the way the models are built will always get these kinds of hidden biases that might be very different to how we think about bias.
So when we know about these problems, we can train it out of it. You can now generate a single banana, right? After, lots of people tried it and people become aware of it, you fine tune it, and then, you basically weed these things out. But there's lots of them that exist that are not as obvious as the, lone banana problem.
How is this lone banana problem encoded in text? Was there certain things that it just can't do when you ask it to generate text?
There are certain things that it will do in a very specific way, given the body of text that it's been trained on. And they're not always obvious to see, much like the lone banana or the lone grape, right?
It can make people more creative, but tests have also shown that, the answers become more similar, right? So, and that's, I think, the conversions to the mean is what we're talking about when we say bias.
Well, Dr. Kai Riemer, Dr. Sandra Peter from the University of Sydney, I have such fun talking to you two. Thank you for coming on the show and talking to me about bananas and probably other stuff too.
Same.
See you next time.
Thanks.
Up next are memes and cat videos making the internet a happier place. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
Summer's here, and Nordstrom has everything you need for your best dress season ever. From beach days and weddings to weekend getaways and your everyday wardrobe. Discover stylish options under $100 from tons of your favorite brands like Mango, Skims, Princess Polly, and Madewell. It's easy too, with free shipping and free returns, in-store order pickup, and more. Shop today in stores, online at Nordstrom.com, or download the Nordstrom app.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
If love is a language, then animal memes are emoji-laced sonnets. From pug pajamas to dancing ferrets, new research reveals that sharing cute critters to your friends online is more than just fun. It's emotional bonding. It's digital courtship. Cats are a love language. I'm here with someone who's researched this topic. Her name is Dr. Ghalia Shamayleh. She is a marketing professor at Essex Business School in Paris. Somehow she gets to study this stuff. Ghalia, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And I'm a cat person, so the minute you said that, you caught my heart. I was just sold.
I don't know how with the commercial break I didn't learn that about you. I too am a cat person. My cat Tomato is heavily featured on this program often.
Oh, my cat, his name's Tomato?
Yes. It's a traditional male name.
It's a boy?
Yeah.
A traditional, yeah, okay.
I actually did want to name him Barbara, which is another traditional male name, but my girlfriend overruled that.
Oh, I love it. Tomato. Okay. And is there a story behind the naming in case we can just tell it real quick?
There is not. It's just a fun name.
Oh.
He's a fun cat. It's a fun name.
It's Tomato. Okay, great.
Okay. We all joke around with the memes, but I do transact with my buddies and transact with my girlfriend in weird internet memes, often facing strange animals doing cute, funny things.
Yeah.
How can you take something so trivial and then decide to examine it academically?
Oh my God. We started out, the way that it even started was funny. I came up to my supervisor and I was telling her about my cat Instagram account. And this is a cat that has passed, so RIP. But she was asking, we hadn't decided on a topic yet for my thesis at the time. And she goes, why don't we write about this? Or why can't this be your topic? And just that eventually became what it is today, which is that paper. I was somebody who had an account and I would share, these pictures of my cat on their own account. But also I was sharing pictures of other cats and other animals online with my friends as well. And other people were doing that too. And it became this phenomenon, And I think I lost track of your question. However, the point here is that how do we get to this topic? We got to it because we were actually doing it. And we started catching on that everybody else was doing it because everybody was getting this type of content online. And so we started to say there's something here. We are consumer culture theorists. And this is something that we thought was really important to talk about because everybody was doing it.
The opposite, I think, of sending lovely memes, viral videos, cats, is doom scrolling. I don't know if you've turned on a news channel recently. Things can get grim.
For sure.
I also do, after I watch a particularly violent or psychologically intense television show, my girlfriend and I just watch cat videos before bed.
Yeah.
Does it really make our brains and the internet, our brains calm down or less upset? And then also, does it make the internet and generally being online a better place?
Right. So our research doesn't specifically focus on how it kind of calms us down as consumers, but it does focus on how, creating this content is us basically imbuing this content with the love and care we have for our animals. So our companion animals, when we interact with them in person, creating this content is basically inspired by these interactions in person. So you and Tomato could be hanging out and you just snap a picture of him and you put it up. So that's the visual cue that kind of has that embedded affective encounter. So that's what we call them, corporeal affective encounters. So that's your corporeal affective encounter with Tomato that you've embedded into that content online. And then someone will come around and see it and they'd feel this positivity because they appreciate your interaction with your companion animal. And then later on, they will see it and they'll say, oh, I'm thinking of my friend because this cat reminds me of that one time that my friend was kind of wobbly during yoga. So I'm going to send them this post about about Tomato, let's say. And when that person sends it to their friend, it's what we call a techno-affective encounter. And that's basically me saying, oh, I thought of you, my friend, and this cat reminded me of you. And so that becomes a positive interaction. It's a token of affection that I've sent to my friend of this cat online, right? So it doesn't really have to be about Tomato specifically. At this point, I've just made it a token of affection that I've sent to my friend. And just stop me if I'm ever talking too much about this, but I'm very excited.
No, you are kind of formalizing this woo-woo concept that the positive stuff you put out there will somehow come back to you, or you put out a positive vibe in the universe and it creates a little bit of positivity and someone brings that to the other person. This is not like a formal concept, but you're studying it and formalizing it and kind of observing it on the internet with these nice, lovely, friendly cat videos.
Exactly. And so we actually even tied it together very nicely with an act that animals already do, specifically penguins, and it's called pebbling. And a penguin will present a pebble to its desired mate, and with as though it was a token of affection. And so we call it digital pebbling, and that would be when we send our friends these memes or these posts of other animals just to kind of remind them that, I'm thinking of you and you matter to me. And just so I remember to plug in my co-author's name over here, her name is Professor Zainab Arcel, and she teaches at Concordia in Canada.
Excellent. You looked at Instagram in particular. What makes this platform so good for something like that compared to, let's say, LinkedIn or maybe the comment section on YouTube videos where everybody is totally sane and not mean at all? Why Instagram?
Instagram because actually that's where it's not where it all started, but it is where it kind of took more traction. So if you're considering things like that, like cat memes, they kind of started off first in the dark side of the web. Maybe now it is dark, but like 4chan, areas like there, and it slowly kind of came closer to social media where individuals were creating kind of virtual albums of their pets to show to family members that maybe weren't that close to them. And so basically they were creating these virtual albums, and those took place on Instagram because that's, and maybe also Facebook, but we kind of localized our platform to be Instagram because that's where we were engaging in it. So we already knew the affordances of the platform. We knew of the features on there. So we had some level of expertise of how that was happening on there. And there are certain, companion animal celebrities like Nala. I don't know if you know Nala the cat, but Nala the cat, I believe started off on Instagram and she gained a lot of traction there. And so that's an interesting place to talk about and to study. So we were first looking at pet influencers, but we kind of leaned in on just companion animals online. So that's kind of how it happened.
Let's talk about parasocial relationships. Like when I follow an account of a grinning capybara, side note, capybaras are amazing. They don't seem to give a about anything. If I follow one who wears sunglasses, and hangs out, am I bonding with the animal? Am I bonding with the human behind the posts? Mm-hmm. Am I connecting with my own inner humanity and own inner carefree attitude? And like, what am I connecting with when I see something like that?
So I would say, or the study that we've just published would say that you are bonding with the animal themselves. But again, like when you say parasocial, we kind of go back to the origin of that term of having parasocial interactions or relationships with celebrities or public figures. So it's a one-sided interaction with that capybara that you're having.
Parasocial being, I know I used the word and then didn't define it, but it's when we feel like we know the celebrities or animal celebrities that we see, even though we don't.
Exactly. So you're just having that relation, you're forging that parasocial relationship with the capybara, and it is a positive affective interaction in a digital one.
Dare I say this was the most fun interview I've had all day. And dare I say I admire you for being, I don't know, a marketing professor and then getting to study cat videos. That seems like kind of an awesome job, I got to say.
Best of both worlds, really.
Well, Dr. Ghalia Shamayleh is a marketing professor at the ESSEC Business School in Paris. Ghalia, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
After the break, it's time for Technology Time, the most redundantly named but fascinating look at stories from the technology sector, including Apple's new hit, iPad OS. Why are they going all in with this and doing a complete U-turn out of Apple Intelligence? Do you even know what that product does? I don't.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
We are back with It's Time for Technology Time. We are joined by expert commentator, friend, handsome man about town, father, grandfather, grandmother. He's some of those things, I assume. Carmi Levy.
Yeah. Wearing, handsome. I don't know. I'm wearing a gray hoodie. I don't know how handsome that can be, but thank you for, reinforcing my self-worth. I appreciate that.
Your stately beard transcends the hoodie, I got to say. Okay. When Apple launched Apple AI or Apple Intelligence.
Apple Intelligence, yeah.
I thought it was the funniest thing. It's like they squatted on the acronym AI. They're like, well, no, it's not artificial intelligence. It's Apple Intelligence.
Apple. Mm.
No one found this as stupid as me because everyone I talked about it just kind of like brushed me off. Having said that, they launched this product with much fanfare. Do you even use it? Like, I got a Mac, I enabled it. I don't even know what it does.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think even if people use it, they're not doing so consciously. And Apple Intelligence really has been something, it's almost like a 50,000 foot platform that doesn't really translate into the day-to-day. I'm staring at my iPhone, using my Mac right now. I honestly could not tell you, and I've activated them as well in the settings. Apple Intelligence is turned on, but I could not tell you, even though I try, whether I'm actually using it or not, because Apple hasn't done a particularly effective job articulating what it looks like in the day-to-day. And I think that was the problem when they announced Apple Intelligence at last year's WWDC, the Developers Conference, where it was just this great big thing. And sure, so you start with a big announcement, but then you got to make it real. What is it? What kind of apps am I going to be using? How does it make a difference in how I use my device? What value does it give to me? And that's why I felt this year was a little bit better in terms of they recognized last year was a bit of a botch, made lots of promises, didn't quite live up to that hype through the rest of the year. And so this year, it was just they totally dialed it back. Oh, here's a fitness buddy. Oh, here's visual intelligence. So it lets you basically do a Google Lens-like thing. I like that jacket. Where can I buy it? So it dials it back and it simplifies it down to the little tasks that we would use it for day to day. Live translation. Everyone can relate to that. I speak French to you, you speak English back to me, and we understand each other because it translates in real time. That I think mere mortals can understand. The term Apple Intelligence, I don't think people can. And I'm really tired of these big announcements from big companies that are not relevant to me. This year, we finally started seeing a little bit of relevance, and maybe that's where this whole entire AI conversation needs to go. Don't make big promises to me. Just tell me how the darn thing works.
And whether it was because the market has been really turbulent or Apple's decisions have caused it, likely both, their stock has been down for this year, about 20%, as I understand it, which, if I gave you $1 and then now you only have 80 cents, it doesn't seem like that much. It kind of sucks. But for a company that had the largest market cap, that's like, I think almost $1 trillion or like $500 billion of market loss or worth loss that has happened to Apple. And I wonder if it's decisions like launching Apple AI with big fanfare, but never really competing, never really being able to sort of catch up with OpenAI. Are they even offering a product that complements it? It's not clear to me what it ever was.
Yeah.
I just know that maybe it's spying on me. And then when I search for things on my computer, it's slightly better. I think that's all it's doing. Let's talk about what they may well be doing right. This iPad OS launch, they're really going all out with this new operating system.
That's one of the things that jumps out at me, because for years, especially since they first introduced the iPad Pro, I think going on now 7 or 8 years ago, where they essentially promised, this is an iPad, it's a tablet, but we really want you to think of it as a laptop, and you don't have to bring your laptop along. In fact, if you don't even want to buy a laptop, you won't need to, because the iPad Pro is enough. But the operating system always had it back because you couldn't really multitask on it. You couldn't really use Windows like you use them on other devices. You couldn't overlay different apps the same way that you could, say, on a Mac or, even on a competing Microsoft Windows machine. And so with the new version of iPad OS 26, of course, they're naming them after the year going forward, it does windowing. It does file management. You can work with PDFs much more easily. You don't have to retrain your brain from working on a full-on Mac to sort of the lesser equivalent on an iPad. Now it's a lot more consistent. And you mix in that liquid glass interface, which is a very similar design across all of the devices. And now realistically, you buy an iPad Pro or even an Air, and it's got the horsepower. And now it has an operating system that looks and acts a lot like what your Mac does. And so you don't have to change things. You're not limited. You don't have to think, do I need to bring my laptop with me on that next trip? Increasingly, you might not have to. And I think this is something iPad owners have been asking for years, and Apple finally delivered. Maybe they'll sell a few less MacBooks because of it, because a lot of people will go, maybe I don't need both. But I think this is the right place to go because iPads really have been kind of like the poor sister of Apple technology for a few years. Now with this operating system update, no longer, and I'm all in for it.
I hope it's not locked down. One of the great things about a laptop versus a tablet, depending on who the manufacturer is, certainly this is the case for Apple, is the operating system's locked down. Like you can't do whatever you want on it. You can't install whatever you want on it. It's very difficult to develop on. You got to use Apple's ecosystem. I wonder if we're not so far from a future where a tablet is just literally going to be a laptop without a keyboard. Like they will be the same under the hood. The chips are getting faster. They run cooler. They run on less electricity, and they're getting more and more powerful. I don't think we're too far from a day like that.
I agree, and I think Apple opened the door to that when on the latest Apple on the iPad Pro, the chip that powers it is an M4, which is exactly the same chip that powers the latest Macs. And as soon as they announced that, I thought, ooh, you're putting the same hardware guts inside. It's only a matter of time before the software follows suit, and I think that's a strategic move. I think it allows people to decide which device works best for them without having to buy two if they don't want to. to. And I think it puts a lot more power in a form factor that is a lot more representative of how we get work done today. And maybe it prepares us for an artificial intelligence driven future as well, if Apple ever does get its Apple Intelligence Act together. And so I think these are all good things. Choice is good. Opening up the model, the foundation models framework to developers, saying you can have direct access to our large language model as you develop new apps. I think that's an important part of this as well. And so if you're a developer, you and I have a common platform for both iPads as well as Macs, as well as iPhones, as well as watches, as well as any other device that Apple makes, even the Vision OS, the Vision Pro headset. And this is a good thing too, because Apple WWDC was all about speaking to developers, getting them excited about its technology, making sure that the millions of programmers out there create software for Apple, not for the competition. And we'll see in a few months if those numbers bear out. But I think Apple did a really good job getting a lot of people excited about what it talks about. We didn't see this news cycle with Google's I/O or with Meta's developer conference or with Microsoft's Ignite developer conference, but we're certainly seeing it with Apple. And even though the stock is down, I think developers are going to take notice.
Microsoft has started to take the view that any software on any platform is good. We don't just need to have this walled garden. You know, they've embraced open source software. I wonder if Apple will realize that too, that generating products for the marketplace as a whole, no matter the operating system, will create a better marketplace for everyone. Their kind of walled garden status, for example, the App Store on iOS not allowing, like I can't just write an app for Apple and distribute it. I got to do it through their App Store channel. They take a cut, they moderate it, they make sure it, like they certify it, they do all this kind of stuff that antitrust lawsuits are little by little making them do less of, especially in Europe. I wonder if they'll take that approach. I hope that they do. For me, that's my biggest gripe with Apple. It's the planned obsolescence. It's the devices that they don't allow you to open up and swap out batteries. They force you to buy a new one. And it's software-wise, this locking down of the platform. Now, God, my brain isn't working. The operating system that's on the laptop. Why can't I remember?
Mac OS.
How did I forget that? Mac OS isn't so locked down, but iPhone OS, iPad OS, these all are. I hope we'll see a day when they aren't. And I hope devices that are blurred lines between laptops and tablets are one of the reasons we see platforms that aren't so locked down.
I share that hope, although I wonder, given Apple's long time culture, if that's going to happen anytime soon. I think they'll be the last ones to drop their walled garden, and investors seem to like the walled garden because it's what makes Apple as profitable as it is.
When we come back, Disney Universal suing an AI company for copyright infringement of their art. We're here with Carmi Levy. It's time for Technology Time continues after the break. This is The Last Show. I'm David Cooper.
I think you're on mute.
Workday's starting to sound the same.
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Your nightly rebellion against predictable radio and podcasts. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It is time for Technology Time. Carmi Levy is here. What happens when you, as an artist, whether you're drawing, making a television show, making a song, that creative work, whether it's owned by a big corporation like Universal or just you're a small artist, what happens when it gets ingested by an AI model, trained by it, and then that model starts spitting out works that look kind of sort of like yours? This is a big question in copyright infringement law, and we're here with Carmi Levy to discuss. Carmi, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, David. Thanks for having me.
So Disney and Universal are suing Midjourney. They make images, but there are platforms that make songs. There are platforms that make videos. This is sort of like a case to watch to see what the precedence is going to be, because there's not a lot of legal opinions that are definitive on this. The AI companies say they're allowed to do it. It's fair use or whatever their legal argument is, untested in court. And the big companies owning the copyright to creative works saying, hey, you can't, you're stealing. Mm-hmm. And then who's left in the middle without much say? The individual artists So let's talk about this lawsuit between Disney, Universal, and Midjourney, an AI company.
So they're basically saying what Midjourney did is it built its image generator. It's an AI platform. You tell it what you want it to create, and it creates that imagery for you. So if you want to remake Darth Vader, you can. If you want to remake Elsa or the Minions from Despicable Me, Midjourney has trained on all of that content, and it can recreate it in any form that you wish. And Disney and Universal are essentially saying that's dirty pool. You didn't ask for permission to scrape our data, to harvest it and use it as part of the training process. And now that puts the very future of our business at risk. And we've seen this at play. The Hollywood actors and writer strikes were dealt with a very similar issue. We've seen authors, filmmakers, voice actors also file suit against this exact thing. What's different here is that image generators are relatively new, and that Midjourney is among the best of them. They're one of the best known, and the technology has become so advanced that you literally cannot tell what was created from AI versus original. So if you're thinking Disney, perhaps you could have fans who would create an entire new Star Wars movie using imagery created by Midjourney without Disney's permission. That's a frightening prospect. And they are saying that it amounts to mass plagiarism. And they are essentially said they want that to stop. They want the company to stop training, and they want them to stop making available outputs that you and I or anyone else can just go to and create, because they're saying that threatens the very future of their business.
What if they don't have records on how they train their model? Like, how do you know a model? Like, let's say it just goes forth on the internet and tries to collect as much image data as possible. The model's now trained and there's no records of what it did.
Yeah.
Is like, you know what I mean? I don't know that they did that, but if they did, how do these companies even prove that the model has somehow encoded in it this massive amount of multidimensional data that we can't usually make sense of? We know that we trained it. We know how we trained it, but the internal mechanism of it, it's just too complex for any one person to understand. How do they even prove it is the question.
They literally can't. And I think that's the problem. That's the wide gulf that we find ourselves in, that the legal community is just starting to grapple with, that we don't really understand how AI training works. The AI companies themselves can't explain it to us. And they certainly can't draw a through line between the training process at the ingestion end, the input end, and what comes out the other end. And so that it's all a big black box, and nobody can understand that, which means there's no legal precedent. That precedent needs to be established, which makes this case so critical. This is the case that will likely break that wide open. We've seen some smaller lawsuits up until now, but experts are saying, and legal experts are saying, this is the one that's going to determine which way things could go. Will the power rest with copyright owners who created the content in the first place? Or will the AI companies be able to skate and say, well, you can't prove that we ingested it, therefore you have no case? We don't know that now. That's why this case is absolutely worth watching.
Or is there something that if you have an AI model, you got to prove you trained it without infringing on copyright? But then that's putting like weird onus on a company to like, why do I have to prove this if you can't prove that I did something wrong? It's a bit of a mess. And I worry like it'll all just be up to however technical the judge is. Like if you get some 80-year-old judge who barely knows how to send an email versus some young judge who understands a little bit about coding and how to use these things, you know, that's my big worry, that lawmakers or even judges who are adjudicating on cases that involve this stuff, they don't understand the technology at all, like at all.
Yeah.
And then they're making these big legal rulings on it, or lawmakers are making laws based on it. It's kind of worrisome.
It is, especially, every time you see like congressional hearings where, the technology companies are called to task to explain how the technology works, and you see the questions that lawmakers are asking, it's pretty clear that they didn't grow up with this technology. They certainly don't use it every day. They absolutely don't understand it, which means how can you craft laws that guide the industry appropriately if you don't understand the technology to begin with? And I think it's a problem across the U.S. It's a problem that is global in nature. And certainly the U.S. isn't the only country that's wrestling with this. I think this is a global issue. And unfortunately, you have technology companies who are taking advantage of that uncertainty. They're racing ahead with with their technologies. They're, engaging in mass training, mass data scraping, knowing full well that there is no framework in place to limit their behaviors or to constrain those behaviors. So they're they're basically making bank while they can, which means if you're a digital creator and you've got, you're an artist or you're an actor or whatever you are, you're a musician, it means that your content has probably already been ingested into this giant machine. Someone else is making money off it, not you.
Yeah, I just remember a certain head of state of a country that's sandwiched between Mexico and Canada. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Little country, yeah.
He had a certain auto manufacturer CEO at the lawn of his head of state residence.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the car showroom at the White House. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the president of this country took one look at the inside of the car and he said, everything is computer. And at that point, I'm like, these people know nothing about how this technology works, and they're the ones that are going to be making the rules for the next 10, 15, 20 years on these big questions governing AI, training models, what should be legal, autonomous driving. And it's just, it's enough to really make you upset if you think about it.
This is why I don't sleep some nights, and this is why sometimes if I'm out on my bike and I see a Tesla driving on the road, I turn the other way because I always worry that it's driving on autopilot or full self-driving, and I don't want to be in the same zip code when this thing passes me.
Everything's computer.
Everything is computer, isn't it?
I mean, it wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Get that guy a Game Boy. He needs one.
I mean, it was a very simple way of communicating how all modern technology and automobiles function, I suppose. We've got just about a minute. I'm going to completely do a U-turn here. Carmi, there's no non-weird way to just drop this on people, but I wanted to spread a little awareness. I think you'll come back in a couple weeks and talk about it more. But Carmi is a stroke survivor, and June is Heart and Stroke Month, and I think we'll talk about it more in the coming weeks. But you want to just set the stage here, put out a little awareness in our last minute or so?
Yep. So a few years ago, I had a stroke. I turned my head the wrong way on my bike, and that threw clots I tore my carotid artery. That threw clots into my brain, and a few hours later, I collapsed. And I am one of the lucky ones. I made a full recovery. I was paralyzed on my right side. I could not speak, and I knew exactly what was going on. I was what they call locked in. But because my wife recognized the signs and symptoms, she was trained in that FAST protocol. She called for 911 immediately, and I got the care that I needed, and I made an almost full recovery. I'm still me. And so I've become a passionate advocate for stroke awareness. It can happen at any age. I was in my 40s when this happened, and it can happen to anyone. And so it doesn't need to be Stroke Month for us to talk about stroke. I will happily discuss it until the very last moment I have on this planet. Nothing matters more.
I guess the short of it is familiarize yourself with the symptoms. So if you or a loved one starts to experience them, you can receive help quickly, because that's very important. It was so important to your story. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to chatting more about your experience in the coming weeks. Carmi, thanks for being here.
Appreciate being here. Thanks so much, David.
Up next, we'll cover a German politician who stripped naked, posed with a sign over his unmentionables, and invited citizens on a swingers trip to France, all in the name of economic research. He did it with the full blessing of the city he's a counselor for. And yes, we're interviewing him. Up next, we'll unpack civic duty with zero pants. You're gonna love it.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
With a Venmo debit card, you can Venmo more than just your friends. You can use your balance in so many ways. You can Venmo everything. Need gas? You can Venmo this. How about snacks? You can Venmo that. Your favorite band's merch? You can Venmo this. Or their next show? You can Venmo that. Visit Venmo.me/debit to learn more.
You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo this, or you can Venmo that. You can Venmo.
The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Card may be used everywhere MasterCard is accepted. Venmo purchase restrictions apply.
The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now in this introduction. The last show with David Cooper.
I'm begging for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
A German politician, a city councilor, is catching heat after posing nude to invite citizens on a swingers trip to France. It's part of a tourism study, part of a training camp. He says it's serious research, though. Critics say it's a joke. Councilor Julien Ferrat joins us to explain his very naked agenda. He's a councilor for the city of Mannheim in Germany. Julien, I am so excited to talk to you today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's nice to talk to you.
Why a resort in France? Why do you think this resort could hold economic lessons for the city in which you work?
Because Cap d'Agde, the nudist village in Cap d'Agde, it's the biggest nudist resort worldwide. You don't have another resort that is so big. And what is also interesting is that it was built to improve tourism. So without state fundings, this nudist village that became later a nudist and swinger village has never been created. So it's interesting to see how the state can improve the local economy by creating something in the field of niche tourism.
So it's sort of like a political education trip. What do you hope to learn? What do you and the people you've invited hope to learn beyond, I don't know, the value of sunscreen?
What we want to learn is to have a look behind the doors. So we want to talk with business people, hotel operators, swinger club operators, etc., but also with people from the city administration, from the tourist office, to know how it is, how the situation could be that a city of around about 30,000 inhabitants like Agde is becoming a worldwide hotspot in niche tourism, especially in nudist and swinger tourism.
Now, is that the kind of niche tourism you want to bring back home to Mannheim? Would you like Mannheim to be a German swinger and nudist destination, or you're just sort of taking this niche and then maybe going to apply it to something else?
Both. On the one hand, you have the situation that from the southwest of Germany, you can reach Cap d'Agde within one day, but from the north of Germany or from Scandinavia, it's too far away. So to establish Mannheim as a small sister of Cap d'Agde, so the people from north of Germany or from Scandinavia would go to Mannheim for, let's say, 1 or 2 days, and then go to Cap d'Agde would be, in my opinion, an idea what makes sense. But I think also that the ideas we learned from the case study of niche tourism, considering nudist and swinger tourism, can also be approved on other examples of niche tourism.
All right, you've given me the data. You've given me a rational reason for going. It's very interesting from a city council point of view, tourism study. But let's talk about what you'll actually be doing. A training camp, outdoor sex, not wearing clothes. What sort of activities are you hoping that you and the people who travel with you get up to there?
Yes, we want to combine theory and practice. To have sex in your bedroom at home is something different than at the beach with a man around you. So to learn in advance how the atmosphere will be there makes, in my opinion, sense. So if someone is feeling very uncomfortable, the person can say, okay, I don't want to join this trip.
Only in Europe could a city councilor talk about these things, pose naked for a city publication, and not get in trouble. I'm just imagining that happening here in North America, and it would never fly. Is your job always fun like this?
No, but I think it also depends on the electoral system, because in the USA and in Canada, you have a majority electoral system, so you need to be the strongest to get elected. But in Germany, we have a proportional vote system, so also minority opinions can be heard in the political debate.
Talk to me about your critics. Some are saying the idea is idiotic. Others saying the idea is embarrassing. I myself think the idea is amazing. I'm on your side. But what do you say to your critics?
Yes, the district chairman of the CDU, Christian Hötting, was not amused about this idea. But to be honest, I think considering the political aspects we have discussed, it's interesting. And you have political excursions to the Bundestag or to the European Parliament. So I thought, let's do something different.
Were you at all scared to take those naked photos? Are you at all nervous to go? Or for you, this is just easy. You don't care. You can be naked anywhere.
Neither one extreme nor the other extreme. So to go there with around about 20 people you don't really know is, of course, something different than going there with your girlfriend. But I'm neither extremely nervous nor extremely enthusiastic. So I'm looking forward to it, of course, but I don't have extreme feelings considering it.
Your whole trip has this sex positive, body positive way of thinking, ethos. Do you think politics needs more of that? Are we too prude in our normal civic life?
You have different people and also different point of views and also different interests. So, of course, there are people who want to have more or less the bourgeois lifestyle, which is absolutely okay. So I will judge no one who's saying I'm not interested in this kind of stuff and I found it weird. That's absolutely fine. But there are also people who are interested in to do something unusual, and I think both should be accepted.
You, of course, have invited people with you. My understanding, and maybe it's more now, at least 22 people have signed up. At least 75 people have at least expressed interest. Who's signing up? Who are you planning on taking this trip with?
We have an age range from 28 to 63. So around about 66% are men and around about 33% are women. So we are I would say, a group covering a lot of ages and also a lot of professions. Some are students, some are self-employed, some are retired, and some are having a normal job as an employee.
Can anyone sign up, or do I have to be from the town of Mannheim in Germany? Could I join you?
Yes, of course. If someone is in Kapstadt from the 2nd to 10th of August, he or she can send me an email and join our program.
Kapstadt, of course, the nudist or swingers place in France. Let's be honest, though. Is this more about the research and the revitalization and bringing niche tourism to your town? Or is it just an elaborate excuse to have some fun?
It's both. To be 100% only on the educational stuff would be some kind of boring, but through only the fun stuff without any education would also be some kind of annoying. So it's, in my opinion, an interesting mix of both.
Well, Julien Ferrat is a city councilor for the city of Mannheim in Germany. He is planning on taking a trip to Kapstadt in France, which is a nudist resort that has swinging. If you'd like to join him to do some research, where can people find out more information, Julien?
On YouTube, you can find 2 documentaries about Kapstadt. The one is from the BBC and the other is from Paraphotos. And both are giving, in my opinion, a good point of view how it looks in Kapstadt.
And if people want to join you on your trip?
You can send me an email via julien.ferrat@mannheim.de to my official email address as a city councillor. And on YouTube, you can watch, as I told you, the both Kapstadt documentaries from the BBC and from Paraphotos. And if you are in Kapstadt from the 2nd to the 10th of August, feel free to send me an email and to join our group.
Julien, I'm so glad you're going. I'm so glad we found your story, and I thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
After the break, we will report on important news that includes me at a grocery store seeing coffee worth $375 a pound. Why? I know the answer is going to surprise you. It's bizarre.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's the whatever, who cares, I certainly don't, I don't know what's happening show. I am David Cooper. We are joined by foreign correspondent Tony Five to discuss something I observed in a specialty food store. What could be a better topic? Tony, welcome in.
Good day, David. Good day, world. Good day, North America, South America, West America, and the other one.
Yes, north, east, southwest, north, southeast, northwest, west. Tony, I was in this fancy grocery store the other day.
Of course you were, David. Of course. David, I wouldn't expect anything different from you.
I hate you so much.
We're in a Whole Foods. They're like fancy, aren't they? Whole Foods.
No, they are not anymore. The Jeff Bezos effect. They used to be this fancy schmancy store with the organic this and the organic that. And gradually over time, they have become, it's pretty affordable. It's like on par with most discount grocers.
Like Walmart.
Maybe like a little more expensive, and the produce and stuff is like one notch up, but it is pretty cheap. Like I have found that for certain commodities, Whole Foods is the cheapest spot in New York.
I've never had a commodity. I had a burrito once. I've never had the rest of it.
I just mean like my favorite tomato sauce, as you say.
Yes, Heinz.
No, it's San American. I forget. It's like the jarred, the canned whole tomatoes that you make tomato sauce from that aren't.
1 minute. Wait. The only tomato sauce is Heinz ketchup that we put on hot dogs. I don't know what you're talking about.
If you're making sauce for spaghetti,
what? You buy a bottle of Heinz ketchup. Again, that's what you do.
Do you put ketchup on spaghetti?
Is there any other reason why not to?
Oh my God. My grandmother used to do that when my parents were out of town. And then I would be like, because my grandmother was a first generation immigrant from Brazil. She emigrated from Rio de Janeiro to Toronto.
Nice.
And she didn't grow up with much.
Yeah.
My parents did a little better than her. You could only hope for your children that they would be more successful than the grandparent.
Oh dear, how disappointed are your parents? Wow.
I hate you. Anyway, my parents would travel and she would, babysit for us. She would stay the week when my parents were out of town, and she would make us spaghetti with ketchup instead of tomato sauce.
Right.
I wouldn't like it, and she would act like I was this spoiled brat, which I guess I am.
I agree with Grandma Cooper.
It was Hirschberg was the last name.
Oh, I like them chocolate bars. Yeah, I really do. We don't get them here a lot.
I hate you. Anyway, Whole Foods is a cheap grocery store. Back to the original thread. I usually buy my canned stuff, my cereal, my milk, my eggs, my butter, all my regular stuff I buy at the cheap spot. But then when it's like, spinach or onions or produce like tomatoes, I get them at the...
What are you buying? You live in a completely different world to me.
What do you mean?
I buy meals that you just do the little pricks in and then put it in the microwave.
Oh, I Gewalt. No, I cook, man. I cook. I buy the raw ingredients and
I cook as well. That thing doesn't cook itself, my friend. It doesn't walk out of the supermarket, walk to my car, go from my car to my fridge, go from my fridge to my microwave. Fair enough. It's only about 1 foot or 2 foot away. Doesn't set the settings.
I'm not above what we call TV dinners here. I eat them occasionally. I keep a few in my freezer for when I don't want to cook or I don't want to order in or I don't want to go out, for sure. But no, my average meal is raw ingredients, put in a pot, heated up, sautéed, softened, sweated, browned, blackened, etc., and then composed into a meal.
My goodness, that sounds like my search history on a certain website.
I hate you so much. Can I get to like the premise of this conversation? Because we're 5 minutes in and you're...
Brown, sweated.
I hate you. Okay.
Right. Yeah, back to topic, David. Come on.
Yeah, I'm at this specialty grocery store and it's like...
I'm so sorry. I've got dizzy there from laughing at my own joke. Carry on.
All right, Tony's got the spins. I see this advertisement. It's just a sign, a laminated piece of paper that says Kopi Luwak coffee.
Yeah.
I think it was like $375 per pound.
Gold? Is it? I don't know. What?
I'm like, you got to be out of your mind. And this is like a fancy store. It's next to the $20 a bag coffee, which I'm already like, you got to be out of your mind.
Okay, so are we talking like mispriced? Are we talking it's not really coffee, it's like undercover cocaine?
No. I asked these people, are you out of your mind? And this guy starts explaining to me that this lemur looking thing in like Indonesia or wherever goes out into the woods, eats coffee cherries before they're processed. They go through their body. The body turns.
Yeah, don't tell me it's the poop.
It's the poop, and then the farmers this is a terrible job. This makes me feel bad. This is why I know humanity has its writing on the wall, because some poor schmuck then has to go collect the refuse, the leavings of this lemur with these semi-digested coffee beans, and then they process those, and it's this coveted coffee that is literally passed through the body of this rat-looking lemur thing. I think it's called a Kopi Luwak or something. It's vile, and who's paying for this?
See, you go right to the end of the treatment. I always think, who thought of it? Like, the first person, right, who thought, oh, look at that. I guess that will make a great cup of coffee.
I have a similar theory about why we think getting a bird to leave droppings on us in public is good luck.
Yeah.
My theory is 10,000 years ago, maybe at the dawn of man, some schmuck was hanging out in a piazza in Rome or something, and a pigeon pooped on him.
Right.
And the whole village started laughing at him.
Gotcha.
He was like, oh, no, you can't laugh at me. This is good luck. I think what might have happened is some schmuck in Indonesia was like, oh, I don't care. I'll just drink poop coffee.
Yeah.
The village started making fun of him. And he's like, no, this is a coveted coffee. That's how I think it got started. And I just completely made that up.
And I'll have $300 from you guys for a cup.
Who's buying this?
But do you never think about the weirdest things in the world that we have? And like, there's the umbrella in a martini or the umbrella in a cocktail. Who thought that was? I mean, the guy's meant to be like a billionaire. I don't know whether it's a sort of a sporadic, eccentric tale. That's not true. But who thought? You know what? I'll make a little umbrella. I'll shove an umbrella on top of a cocktail. Everybody in the world will not identify a cocktail without the umbrella, and I'll be a billionaire. Who does that?
Is that like you meet someone at a party and they're like, oh, go talk to Andrea. She's from Big Cocktail Umbrella Fortunes. Yeah.
Exactly. The military industrial umbrella. I mean, it's just so weird. So weird.
Well, yesterday I had this dude on the show. He's built these rooms into caves. He charges rich people thousands of dollars to stay in them. And it's just basically solitary confinement. You're in the pitch black for 5 days. They feed you through a double door. And once a day you get like counseling on your spiritual journey in the dark. And in the dark, there's a bed, there's a toilet, and there's a bathtub. And you pay for the pleasure to be literally tortured.
Yeah, see, I think that's the eccentricity of richness. I think once you have so much money that you can't do the normal things that I was going to say you, but me would do, because you are shopping at a place that sells $300 coffee.
Yeah, but I'm not buying that. I'm just buying some celery. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I would never go daily shopping and even see that in my vicinity. I might see the rat who poops the coffee, but not the coffee.
Well, it's my opinion that you buy everything but the perishable ingredients at the cheap store, and then you buy it's like, okay, celery at the cheap store is $2, but celery at the expensive store is $3.50.
Gotcha.
But it's way better celery.
How can you have way better? Is there a tier group for celery?
Yeah, one can be dry and tasteless, and others can be crunchy and delicious.
Okay, again, your celery racism is very strange to me.
Tony, I don't know what we just accomplished in the last 10 minutes, but I'm glad we accomplished it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, my friend. I'll be back talking about more flavorsome celery.
Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England. Coming up next, narcissistic CEOs and bosses are more likely to fake their emotions when they're lonely. So why are these bosses lonely, and why are they so good at acting like they're not?
Want to part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT!
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
A lot of us put on a front when we're feeling lonely, but what about CEOs? Are they especially good at faking emotions? Smiles on their face, confidence, charm, all the while quietly unraveling on the inside. New research says yes, especially so if a CEO is a narcissist. Lonely leaders might be some of the best actors around. I'm here with someone who worked on that study. His name is Dr. Anthony Silard. He's an author and professor of leadership and organizational psychology at the Luis Business School in Rome. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here, David.
The stereotype of the powerful CEO, I think, negatively gets connotated with narcissism. Perhaps this is earned, perhaps this is not. But what made you want to study this in the first place?
Well, I really believe in a kind of human-centered, inclusive type of leadership where leaders build a kind of participatory organization, and people can really feel heard and listened to, and feel like they belong, which has never been more necessary. So yeah, narcissism. It's interesting because I studied narcissistic leadership and also humble leadership, and they're not exactly opposite sides of the spectrum, but really one gets things right much more, and then the other, which is the narcissistic leadership, is really often alienates leaders from their employees and from themselves.
Yeah, let's talk about this cocktail of self-importance, self-indulgence, narcissism, and loneliness for those at the top of the organizations we look at. Are these type of CEOs especially good at faking it?
Well, this is interesting. So this is a paper that I wrote with Peter Harms and Alaric Bourgois and Sarah Wright. And Sarah Wright, she's like probably the top researcher in the world on loneliness right now. And we worked on this paper, and we had a pretty incredible sample, like over 100 Canadian CEOs. And it's very difficult as researchers to get CEOs to agree to participate in studies because they're so busy. So we're really happy about that. And what we found was that it's not that narcissistic leaders fake their emotions necessarily. It's that when narcissistic leaders are lonely, they fake their emotions. But let me clarify that surface acting, which is the emotional labor or this emotion regulation process, where either an individual fakes their emotions when they're working in an organization, or they express an emotion that they don't feel. So basically, they feel an emotion, they express an emotion they don't feel, or they feel an emotion that they don't express. Either way, they're obfuscating their true emotions. And it's not so surprising what we found, because essentially loneliness dysregulates. When we feel lonely, we tend to have poor social judgment. We make bad decisions. We alienate others more from ourselves. And then you add to this cocktail, as you put it, you add the narcissism in leaders, and leaders that are highly narcissistic, they tend to be very sensitive, really, really concerned about their image. And what happens is when they start to feel lonely, they start to feel like they don't belong, that others don't want them there. And when these kind of feelings emerge, then they say, well, okay, they're kind of like the hairs stick up, and it's like, okay, I gotta really protect my image here, and so I better not
express anything that's going to reduce my status in any way. And so they end up faking their emotions. And then what happens when you fake your emotions is that you end up feeling stressed. It's also a lot of work because you got to always think about what you don't want to express. And then you end up feeling burnt out and isolated from yourself and others. So it's not a good idea.
This surface acting, how is it different than just being polite, engaging in polite society? When the barista asks me how I'm doing, I don't say I'm terrible, my wife just left me, I'm lonely, I don't know who I am. I say, good, how are you? Is there something fundamentally different than just kind of being polite and saying I'm fine than the kind of surface acting you're seeing in lonely CEOs?
Well, so surface acting, we all do it, as you just said. The main thing, though, is that there's a much healthier form of emotional labor, which is called deep acting. And deep acting is kind of like, the method acting that actors do, where you, for example, you have to cry in a certain scene. So you start thinking of thoughts, like think about when your wife left you, or when you were beat up on the playground, or other kinds of memories that make you feel sad. And then before you know it, you're crying. And so this kind of deep acting is where we reframe situations so we can experience the emotion that we feel would be the right emotion to express to fit in the organization. And it takes a little bit longer. Research by James Gross and others is that deep acting takes longer, but it has all these positive effects, whereas surface acting leads to all these negative and detrimental effects. So the third form of emotional labor, there's only three, is genuine emotional labor, which is when you naturally feel the emotions that you feel called upon to express. So, for example, a nurse who naturally feels compassion for a sick child, that would be genuine emotional labor. So the real problem with surface acting is when we overdo it. We all do some of it, but if we do it a lot, we start feeling alienated from ourselves and others.
And so that's what you observed in the CEOs that you surveyed who had these narcissistic traits.
If they were lonely. If they weren't lonely, they weren't surface acting like more than the average. But when they were lonely, they were surface acting a lot more than was normal for CEOs to be doing.
Are you seeing that CEOs, powerful people in the workforce, are lonely and sad, that maybe something inherent to this job isolates them from others?
Okay, well, first of all, we're all lonely. Like over 3 in 5 Americans are lonely right now based on the UCLA loneliness scale. In Britain, the former Prime Minister Theresa May hired a minister for loneliness. That was after a study came out that found that British children, this is a true fact, British children spend less time outside than prison inmates. In Japan, if you look at the elderly population over 75, the incarceration rate has quadrupled in the last 15 years. Why? At least in prison, there's someone to talk to.
Community.
Yeah, a community. So loneliness is skyrocketing. And so everywhere in organizations. But then when you take CEOs where this sort of concern about self-presentation can be that much higher because you feel like there's, you see narcissists tend to think that everyone around them is a threat. And when they're in a position of power, that can amplify. And then when they're lonely again and feel like other people don't want to talk to me and I don't really, people, they just talk to me because I'm the CEO, but really they don't like me. Then they start making poor social decisions, and that's where we see them over-relying on surface acting and becoming more isolated from others.
Any interesting insights or takeaways from this research that we haven't yet touched upon that you'd like to share?
I mean, I think the real takeaway is, well, first of all, if you are highly narcissistic, you need to work on that, right? Because narcissism, people in organizations find narcissistic leaders to be toxic, aggressive. That's not a good way to be. It's not going to produce the long-term loyalty and commitment that you need from people. And then if you are, all of us have some narcissism, but if you feel like your narcissism is especially high, and even if not, you don't want to over-rely on surface acting. At some point, you got to be real. You got to be genuine. You got to connect with people. And there's really not another way. I mean, leaders are facilitators of social connection, between themselves and their team members, and between their team members themselves. That's their role.
Check out Dr. Anthony Silard's book, Love and Suffering, Break the Emotional Change That Prevent You from Experiencing Love. That's available wherever books are sold. Tony, I've enjoyed the chat. I appreciate your time.
Me too. Thanks so much, Dio.
That's a wrap on The Night Show. Thank you for listening to it. Don't forget, The Last Show is available as a podcast. If you like something so much you want to hear it again, or you missed a portion of the show tonight or on another night, just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com, and there you can find out details of our podcast and how to subscribe. I am David Cooper, and this is, well, it's not the first show. I keep telling people that. We'll catch you tomorrow night.
Well, you've heard me on the radio and you've listened to my podcast. Well, now you can watch me on YouTube for thought-provoking conversation, fearless interviews that you won't get anywhere else. The Ben Mulroney Show every single day. So go to YouTube, subscribe to The Ben Mulroney Show, and never miss an episode.